From childhood's hour I have not been as others were. I have not seen as others saw.
I'm hurt. I had plans. I graduate next month. My uncle was supposed to be there. And I feel like he's not going to be there, so what am I supposed to do?
I could not bring my passions from a common spring. From the same source I have not taken my sorrow. I could not awaken my heart to joy at the same tone. And all I loved alone.
Smile, Chihuahua.
I never thought I would see this day, ever, for neither one of them. That's something I can't never get back.
Then in my childhood, in the dawn of a most stormy life, was drawn from every depth of good and ill, the mystery which binds me still.
Every depth of good and ill, the mystery which binds me still.
The world would make way for Dawn Scott on July 2nd of 1987. She was born to her parents Ellen Hardy and Dwayne Scott, where she was raised in Avondale, Louisiana. Life in Avondale was great for Dawn. She was raised amongst 5 other siblings. She had loving parents. She was also raised in the church, so she was well grounded. As a child, she was described as funny, energetic. She was someone who was fun to be around. She also had a loving personality. She'd give you the shirt off of her back. She was the type of person that you could truly count on. Time would quickly fly by, and in 2003, Dawn would graduate from the Louisiana National Guard. For Dawn, college life would be cut short. She would find out that she was having a son. In fact, before long, she would have 2 sons. She was a single mother and she was working hard. For Dawn, taking care of her children was top priority. She would often work odd jobs such as working in a restaurant or being a cashier at Walmart. But although she wasn't drowned in riches, she did have love. She loved her 2 boys and life was great.
Nay.
Bite a piece. Bite.
In 2015, she would meet a guy who goes by the name of Ray Neal, a guy who was also from the Louisiana area. For the couple, life was great. They met and love quickly blossomed. Dawn was the mother of 2 boys, while Ray Neal was the father of 2 girls. It seemed like a perfect match. In fact, a match made in heaven. Their baby girl would enter this world in the year of 2016. By now, Dawn Scott is 28, while her boyfriend is 31. As the saying goes, time doesn't slow up, and they figured out that they were each other's forever, and they were engaged to be married.
For now, the couple shares an apartment in Kenner, Louisiana, which is roughly 15 minutes from New Orleans. Inside of this home was Dawn Scott, her boyfriend, Ray Neal, Dawn Scott's 2 boys, and their new little girl. For them, their baby girl would strengthen their bond. In Dawn's eyes, this was the completion of her family. She was at a state in her life where everything seemed great. For Ray Neal Kimbrough, Dawn was a breath of fresh air. He had another baby mother who he didn't exactly get along with. They would often bicker and fight, and with Dawn, things were different. They were more at peace. Ray Neal was more reserved, while Dawn was outgoing. They were the type of couple that was able to level out each other. In their free time, they enjoyed hanging out with family and friends. And if they were kid-free, they liked to go out and party. 2 weeks after welcoming their baby girl into this world, they would do just that. They would go out for daiquiris with a group of friends. But little did they know that a night that was meant to be their escape would be their ultimate end.
911, what's the emergency, please?
On April 4th of 2016, the authorities would be dispatched to the 2100 block of Idaho Avenue. The caller, a 10-year-old boy.
And we were the first news outlet on the scene, and police are still investigating here at 22nd and Idaho. A man and woman found dead inside this taped-off apartment. An incredibly emotional morning.
Two very emotional families and dozens of friends flooded to an apartment complex in Kenner early this morning after hearing the terrible news of the deaths of 28-year-old Dawn Scott and her boyfriend, 31-year-old Raynell Kimbrough, pictured here at the couple's baby shower just a few weeks ago.
So now we have to go home and explain to our children what happened to their uncle. It's not going to be pretty.
Scott's family describes the mother of three as a sweet and beautiful young woman. Kimbrough's sisters said the same of their brother. Reporting in Kenner, Kelsey Davis, WDSU News.
At the beginning of the investigation, the authorities had no suspect. They had no motive. And to make matters worse, they had little to no evidence on the scene. But although they had no suspect, they did have a person of interest.
And today, Kenner Police Chief Michael Glasser announced a possible break in the case.
And as Paul Murphy reports, Crime Stoppers also increased the reward for information about the double murder.
With little to no evidence, the authorities had to rely on witness testimony to bring forth more information. And in their search for the truth, they would uncover a clue. An eyewitness statement detailed that shortly after hearing the commotion, they saw a gold vehicle speeding away from the scene. They were asked if they could identify the person by name, but no one could, not even if they were presented a lineup. For the lead detectives, the hard work was now beginning. In the course of the investigation, they would strike gold. They would locate a surveillance camera. The camera caught not only the gold vehicle, but it was clear enough to get a license plate read.
Kenner Police Chief Michael Glasser announced detectives caught up with the driver of the vehicle in question. He confirmed the Avondale man is a person of interest in the case, and he has not been eliminated as a possible murder suspect.
I think it was an acquaintance, so I don't think it was a stranger. No, it's someone that was known to the family.
While the investigators are working the case, the family is preparing to bury their loved ones. But there was one problem. They didn't have the funds. They would be forced to reach out to the media in hopes to generate donations. In light of the heartbreaking situation, the community had no problem helping. They were able to send their loved ones off in a beautiful way. But there was still an elephant in the room. For the family, there was no real closure. At the time of their burial, they had a person of interest, but no charges had been brought forth.
My brother was a loving person. He may have his ups and he may have his downs, but he never would do nobody what they did him. Whatever the situation may be, if it was a beef with my brother, she had nothing to do with this. She wasn't a violent person. This girl was a working person and a loving mother.
God, you know what's best. Oh my God.
I don't have anything to say, nothing. Because they're going to get their day.
Whoever you hit him, her, whatever may have been, you was cold-hearted. And the last person you have to answer to is God. And he's going to handle whoever you may be.
For the family, they couldn't think of anyone who could possibly want to harm them. Both Dawn and Raynell were loved by everyone they encountered. At this point, the authorities had did a thorough investigation of any and everyone who knew them. And besides this person of interest, nothing came of it. And although they had a strong lead, you can't bring theory to court. You need concrete evidence. When the last flowers were placed on the burial sites, the fight was now on. They were leading a fight for justice. It would be a great day when we live in a world where people come forth for nothing, for no personal gain. But that's not the world we live in. And sadly, most of the time, they have to announce a reward just to generate leads.
Crime Stoppers is hoping an increased $5,000 reward will lead to new tips in the case. If you have any information, call Crime Stoppers at 822-1111.
The $5,000 reward would do its trick. Shortly after it aired, they would get hundreds of tips. Before long, that person of interest was a strong suspect. The authorities would leave no stone unturned. They had witness accounts. They had surveillance tape. They also matched the suspect with his license plate. And to make things even better, the suspect was found with bloody articles of clothing at his own home. In May of 2016, the authorities would draw up a warrant for then 30-year-old Sean Barnett. Upon announcing his arrest, they wouldn't have to go far. Sean Barnett was already locked up on unrelated charges. He had been violated on his parole, and he was currently behind bars. But it was about to get a lot worse for him. During the trial, the prosecution would have a star witness. This star witness would be the 10-year-old son of Dawn, the person who made the 911 call. Her 10-year-old son would take the stand, and it was emotional. He told what he saw that morning, how he discovered his parents, and then ran next door to call the authorities. The 10-year-old was able to positively identify Barnett as the man he saw leaving his home the day his parents were murdered.
When the trial began, Sean Barnett would plead not guilty. On top of that, during the investigation, Sean had refused to speak to investigators. So during the trial, they would be forced to lay out their own theory. They know that the night before they were found, they went out for drinks. In this group was Don, Raynell, and Raynell's friend, Sean Barnett. It isn't exactly clear what happened while they were out drinking, but by the time they reached their home, Sean had got into an argument with Don Scott. The prosecutors know this because the neighbors alleged that on the night before they were found, they heard a loud argument. This argument would last for a short period of time before Raynell had enough, and then he tells Sean it's time to go. Through cell phone records, they would learn that Sean Barnett left their apartment around 12:56 a.m. After Sean left, Dawn went to her kid's bedroom and peeked open the door, and they were sound asleep. She then takes their 2-week-old daughter and gets into bed, followed by her boyfriend Raynell. When the couple closed their eyes on that night, they had no idea that in the forthcoming hours, tragedy would hit. Again, it isn't clear exactly what the argument was about between Sean and Don Scott, but whatever it was, had to have been serious, or maybe some words were said that cut his ego, because for the next few hours, Sean would dwell on it, and shortly after 6 a.m., he would return. Sean then gains entry to the home through the back door. During the investigation, they found that there was no forced entry, so either he knew that door was unlocked or he was able to exploit a weakness that couldn't be found through the investigation. Now inside of their home and armed, he would make his way to their bedroom. Upon opening their door, he would discover Raynell and Don Scott asleep in their bed, but they weren't alone. Inside of their bed was their 2-week-old daughter. Raynell wasn't a heavy sleeper, he was a light sleeper. So when Sean entered their room, he woke up. Sean Barnett then fires one shot. At this point in time, Raynell has now been struck in the head region. Through adrenaline, Ray is able to get out of bed, but when he stands up, he immediately collapses. Sean Barnett then turned his attention to Don Scott. At this moment of time, Don Scott is holding her 2-week-old baby, and she is now awakened by the sound. And when she awakes, Sean fires 2 shots. Don Scott never saw this coming. It happened in a matter of seconds. Don would be hit in the head region, as well as the torso. Sean Barnett then exits the bedroom, but before he does, he turns around and he sees Raynell. He's already unconscious on the floor and, at this point, struggling for life. But for Sean, that wasn't enough. He needed to make sure that the job was done. So before he left their room, he fired one more time. In this moment, Raynell would sustain an injury also in the torso area. Unbeknownst to Sean, during all of the commotion, her 10-year-old son was awakened. While Sean was fleeing the scene, the 10-year-old boy was able to get a good look. Luckily for him, Sean didn't know this. He was in too much of a hurry to get to his goal for tours. Sean exits the building, and then their 10-year-old son goes into their room. And what he finds is heartbreaking. Time passes, and Sean is indicted. But during the investigation, they would learn that both Sean and Raynell were very close. In fact, Raynell referred to this guy as his own brother. And in the end, he would be the one to take him out.
Got me feeling like them leaves. Please hold me down, I need to rest.
I love my father, and it's my father. Like anything else I have that I love, that's my father.
7-year-old Shania Kimbrough was a world away in Atlanta with her mother when her father and his girlfriend were murdered in their Kenner home. Now the Kimbroughs feel the pain rippling through the family.
Liberate, liberate, don't look at me that way. It's a different taste. Liberate, liberation. We ain't got
I'm hurt. I had plans. I graduate next month. My uncle was supposed to be there. And I feel like he's not gonna be there, so what am I supposed to do?
I never thought I would see this day, ever, for neither one of them. My uncle, Tootie, both of them was my everything. That's something I can't never get back.
They didn't just take a sister-in-law from me. That was my favorite. They took a brother, a baby brother, from us.
Liberate, liberate, don't look at me that way. It's a different taste. Liberate, liberation. We ain't got no time to waste. We have got something to say. Don't look at me.
And, I mean, words can't explain how they made the two families feel.
2 years after the incident occurred, Sean Barnett would be found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. This case was truly all around tragic, but even more heartbreaking was the victim impact statement made by Raynell's 7-year-old daughter. What she had to say was truly devastating. She would gather her courage and read her statement. And during this statement, she would tell Sean Barnett that you heard me before anyone ever had a chance to. This girl was 7 years old, and even she understands that the pain she experienced at that age will never be matched. Although the case is closed and the perpetrator is behind bars, there's still one problem. What exactly transpired never came out, and without knowing the real motive, they're forever left in the dark.
When people do life in prison, their only get back is staying silent and never telling the family exactly what happened. It's their sense of relief behind bars, knowing that they hold the final key to closure.
Will the full story of what happened ever be released? I guess we'll never know, unless he experiences a change of heart. One thing we do know is that a family will forever suffer in pain. Kids will grow up without their parents, but even more surreal is that them losing their lives won't change a thing. This will continue to happen over and over. To the state of Louisiana, they're just another statistic, no more than a mere number on a chart of those who lost their lives. But for others, they were a loving mother, a loving father, people who brought joy to those around them. And those joyous moments will never happen again. Rest in peace, Don Scott and Raynell Kimbrough. Thank you for being a light for others.